Challenge Call with Max and Avery. I'm your host, Max.
And I'm Avery. How are you guys?
All right, so we're going to do things a little bit differently today because, as most of you probably know, the FIFA World Cup is currently going on, so we're going to bring you guys a little news about that. Avery, you want to get it rolling with our opening game?
Yeah, so Qatar opened up the World Cup playing Ecuador, and Ecuador was no match for Qatar, 2-0. And so, yeah, I just think that's kind of cool. I always like that home country gets to play in the very first, ceremony game. So I think that is, the coolest thing ever. It's really unfortunate what happened with Qatar actually getting the bid and for the World Cup and the Olympics this year. But, what can you do? Money talks.
Definitely. I didn't watch that game at all or anything. The first game I partook in was the Team USA versus Wales, both of which will be teams that I will be following and supporting in this World Cup. That game actually ended in a tie, 1-1, which soccer does, at least in the initial World Cup games. Avery, what did you think of that game? I know you watched.
Yeah, well, the U.S., they were up 1-0 for pretty much the whole match. And then it wasn't until the last little bit that Wales came out and scored a goal. I'm not really, that's not my second team. I understand your background with Wales, so I totally get why, they're your second team. But yeah, no, 1-1, soccer's so weird. There's no real winner. When you get into the tournament, there will be. Right now, they're just playing for the seeding and everything like that. But there's no real winner right now, and it's kind of unfortunate. But what are your takes on the winner-loser tie?
That is kind of a weird thing. When you're just playing for seeding, I get it. It doesn't really matter who won or lost. We just need to know how to rank you guys going into the tournament. So that makes sense. I get it. Most of the time, there is overtime stuff. And honestly, I kind of love how soccer overtime works. Just because I believe they actually play 1 or 2 overtime periods. But then beyond that, it goes to straight penalty kicks. And it is the most fun thing watching just a series of 5 penalty kicks on either side. The goalie and the striker, just who's going to outmatch the other. I think it is super, super exciting when you get into a true, penalty kick overtime with soccer. But for this sake, I get it. 1-1, that's fine. Wales actually won that last goal, or got that last goal off of a penalty kick, which I've heard is pretty common for World Cup games, it's either won or lost with a penalty kick somewhere in the game, and Wales tied it up with that, so I think both teams played fairly well. It's funny because you know how we were talking, I think, last week about refs kind of blowing games for the Bears and stuff like that? Well, the announcers in this game were talking about how the refs are being very inconsistent as well, stopping the game when some players were down but not others, and yellow carding some players on the U.S. side where the same penalties are being committed by the Welsh but not being called. And so I think it's weird. We normally think about refs screwing us over in such a football standpoint, but in soccer too, totally different sport and everything, refs still just seem to be a huge pain in the ass for some people.
For sure. And I hate refs. I get it. They have a job to do, and some of them are fair, and you can't see everything on the field all at once. And I get that. We're all human. But, God, there's so many issues with refs in every sporting event. So, but yeah, another game I would like to talk about is Mexico versus Poland. They played yesterday, and it was also another tie, 0-0. Mexico probably will be that second team that I'm cheering for in the World Cup. Yeah, so that's all I really got on Mexico versus Poland.
Definitely. So just getting into The games coming up then, we have Wales playing England, not Wales, Team USA playing England. Wales will be playing Iran, and this is happening on Friday. Sadly, I'm not going to be able to catch that Wales game because it's at 4 in the morning here, so not going to get up for that.
Oh, for sure. That's so early. I always look at the times and I'm like, man, why are they playing at 4 in the morning? Why are they playing at 1 o'clock in the at night? And it's just it makes sense. You got the time zones and you got the time restraints, and this is the World Cup. You got to be inclusive to the world. And yeah, a game that I'm excited for that I'll probably watch on Saturday is Mexico versus Argentina. So I kind of like that the USA plays on on a Friday and Mexico plays on a Saturday. It was kind of like that this week too. So I'm excited to try to catch that game on Saturday.
There you go. Friday is definitely a big day for sports, as we'll get into a little bit later. Iowa plays Nebraska in football. The Iowa Hawkeyes have a basketball game. The Omaha Mavericks have a basketball game. Wales and the United States are playing in the World Cup. There are just too many games to watch all of them on Friday. It's going to be a crazy day.
That's perfect because most people are off from Thursday and Thanksgiving to that Friday, and it would be the perfect. Let me just sit, eat Thanksgiving leftovers, sit on the couch, and watch all these sporting events. Unfortunately,
that would be fine if they were all back to back with one another, but unfortunately, at least 2 or 3 of them are going to be on at the same exact time. So you almost have to kind of make your decision. Which way am I going to go?
For sure. I'm pretty sure we're going to talk about I'm pretty sure we're going to watch Iowa football game. But
football, yeah. That's my plan.
But anyways, let's move on.
All right. Getting into some notable games that happened around the NFL this week. We have a game of a couple of our previous guests, the Vikings and the Cowboys. Sorry to say for Andy, the Cowboys did absolutely destroy the Vikings, 40-3. Congrats, Phillip. Avery, what did you think of that game?
There is no more Kirk Thuggin. Kirk Thuggin is dead. He looked atrocious from the first play of the game. Micah Parsons came at him and put him 6 feet into the ground. Micah Parsons,
he was putting in work. Even when he got hurt, near the end, he came out. They were kind of like, hey, we're up 30. Micah should just chill on the side. No, he wanted back in there. He's like, nah, let me play. He was going for some records that game.
For sure. Yeah, and so one thing with the Cowboys, I think they're still kind of fraudulent, even after a 40-3 win, because look at a couple of their losses. But the Vikings are definitely fraudulent. Definitely a fraudulent 8-2 team. It's so hard to say. I was talking to a friend of mine, and I was like, you know what? I think the whole NFC is fraudulent because they beat up on each other. But this wasn't just a beat up. This was a demolishing. A 40-3 demolishing.
This was a real, even for a football fan, it's almost hard to watch just as a supporter of any team. Even if I was, okay, maybe not if I was a Cowboys fan, but of a general football fan, when a game is getting this out of control, why even watch it,
Well, and fun fact, CBS actually halfway through the third quarter cut out the Vikings Cowboys game and moved it to the Bills Browns game because it was not competitive enough.
Exactly. That's exactly my point. Is a demolishing like this? It's like, hey, this is not good football.
No,
I don't know if I would call the Vikings fraudulent per se. I think the Cowboys are a very good team. You drop games sometimes. We saw the Eagles do it a week or two ago against the Commanders. It's hard to keep a perfect record. It almost never happens in the NFL. I think games here and there are going to be dropped, and I maybe Minnesota wasn't as prepared as they should have been coming into it.
I agree, and the emergence of Tony Pollard as the number one back is incredible. He can do it all: running, catching, receiving. Like, it's incredible. But so the emergence of Tony Pollard and Dak Prescott. Dak, shut up all the haters. Cooper Rush, who at this point? Cooper Rush is not ever gonna play for the Dallas Cowboys unless Dak's hurt. He's never going to be the starter.
Like, I know it was very obvious, like, no, once Dak is back, blah, blah, blah. But it's almost as if it wasn't like that to Dak. He almost had the mentality of, like, hey, I'm going to show up and ball the fuck out because I know I got a backup right on my ass who's winning games, doing great. I need to go out there and prove myself just that much more that I deserve this spot. You know, leave no questions in anyone's head.
And that's exactly what he's done since he came back. And so I'm pretty happy about that. But moving on to the 49ers versus the Cardinals.
Speaking of another quarterback who has a lot to prove and is trying to show his worth, Garoppolo.
Jimmy G. Jimmy G. So this game was down in Mexico City, so that's pretty cool. The NFL has just recently started doing this, put in a game in Mexico City every year. And there was so many 49er fans. And I get it, San Francisco, Mexico City, it's near, but Arizona is actually closer. But at the same time, like, there was so many 49ers fans, and George Kittle went off for 3 TDs. George Kittle.
Iowa boy, I love seeing our Iowa graduates go out in the NFL and be ballers, and George Kittle's probably one of the best we've sent in, currently at least.
It's kind of funny because, like, he's been used as, like, a blocker all year. He's been a designated left tackle, even though he's one of the best tight ends in the league.
Before this game, he was pretty silent. He was pretty quiet out there. Just, you weren't seeing a whole ton about Kittle blowing up. Like, it was kind of like, oh, is he not as good this year? Has he fallen off a little bit? I think this game just goes to show, no, he didn't. He's been utilized differently. He just hasn't been getting the same kind of attention as far as targets and whatnot. But he's still the guy. He's still one of the best players on that team, I think.
For sure, and I want to talk about Jimmy G, too, the guy throwing him the ball. Like, I don't know why people think, like, well, one, I don't know why Kyle Shanahan went and drafted Trey Lance in the first place, because I don't think Trey Lance will see the field ever again, because Jimmy G's having a prove-it year, kind of similar to what we talked about with Dak. Jimmy G came in and is like, oh, you're going to start Trey Lance against the Bears? Okay, that's fine. Start Trey Lance against the Bears week 1. Trey Lance gets hurt. Okay, it's my time to roll. And Jimmy G's so consistent with it. And you can tell he's having so much fun out there. And this is the thing with the 49ers. The players love Jimmy. The players, like his teammates, love Jimmy. When Jimmy has a bad game, he'll take ownership. Unlike, the next quarterback we'll talk about. But he'll take ownership. And that's the thing. Like, that's the hard part. You need a leader. That's half the battle. Jimmy's a good quarterback. So I just think the 49ers will end up sticking with Jimmy Garoppolo at the end of this year.
Definitely. I understand the move to draft Trey Lance. I don't support the move of starting him right away. I think if anything, you draft Trey Lance, you have him sit under Jimmy G 2-3 years, just grow as a quarterback, learn, observe, kind of like we wanted Justin Fields to do with Andy Dalton that first year. But when they drafted him, that wasn't their strategy at all. They drafted him with the intention of, okay, now let's get rid of Jimmy G. And if they would have done that, they literally would have just fucked themselves. Because as you said, he got hurt week 1, and it was kind of like, oh, Jimmy, I know we were trying to, get you out of San Francisco not 2-3 weeks ago, but you're going to be our starting guy now.
And there was
props to Jimmy G for going out and still playing with it, like not being salty about trying to be let go and all that. Like, no, he's still going out there and still winning games for him.
For sure. And going on from what you said, Jimmy G, you could start for us now. Well, in the offseason, the 49ers wouldn't even give him their playbook. And they made him practice on a practice field beside the players. He didn't even get a run scout team. He didn't get a run against live action during training camp. So the 49ers literally treated him like he was ostracized from the team, which is so fucked up.
Honestly, get Jimmy G out of San Francisco. Like, fuck San Francisco. That just pisses me off, you know? Like, you have a fine, consistent, talented quarterback right here, and you're treating him like crap. Like, I don't think any player deserves to be treated like that, just especially for the reasons of just they don't think he's the guy. It's nothing about the way he acts or his attitude or anything like that. If you were talking about this with, an Antonio Brown who's got some kind of attitude things along with him, maybe I could see it. But Jimmy G is just out there trying to play, and they're treating him so poorly just because they don't think that he is an NFL tier quarterback, which is bullshit.
Which is hard to say for a guy that was in the Super Bowl 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Literally in the Super Bowl 2 years ago. Yeah, I mean, I was just watching a video about the 1990 Dallas Cowboys, right? And Troy Aikman. Look, I would compare Troy Aikman to Jimmy G, and Troy Aikman's in the Hall of Fame. Because he was very average, and he was around a whole bunch of talent on the offensive side. Emmitt Smith. Well, 49ers have Christian McCaffrey. Oh, they have Michael Irvin. We have Deebo Samuel. The comparisons go list and list, and they got a ferocious defense. Oh, they have a ferocious defense. I just think, there is so many comparisons with Jimmy G and the Cowboys of the 90s and Troy Aikman that nobody really realizes. And I think if Jimmy G wins a Super Bowl, people will start putting respect on his name.
Yeah, I would love to see it, honestly. I have mixed feelings, because like I said, if the Niners win the Super Bowl, that's just, props for the team as a whole, and fuck the team a little bit. I mean, not the players, because like you said, the players love Jimmy G, so I love that for him, but just the administration, the staff, screw them for treating Jimmy G so poorly. I'd love for him to win the Super Bowl, but also I don't want to credit that staff with a Super Bowl, I don't think they deserve it. I think they obviously made it clear that they didn't want Jimmy G, and so if there's a Super Bowl to be won, I don't think you can give them any credit for it if he's the one that gets them there.
For sure. And right now he's playing like he's going to be the one to get them there.
Yeah, now let's get into another game that was almost the complete opposite of a blowout in a 3-3 battle against the Patriots and the Jets.
Yeah, no, this game was incredible. Zach Wilson, can we call him a bust? Is it too soon? Is it too soon to call him a bust?
No, because I think he's been playing. What, he was drafted the same class as Fields, right?
Yep.
And so this is his second season. He's halfway through his second season, and just, this is the time quarterbacks should be breaking out. This is exactly like we were talking about earlier this season, how Justin Fields isn't through his 16 game stretch. Wait till it's season 2. It's what Peyton Manning did. It's what Joe Burrow did. And so far, Zach Wilson, he's not doing it.
For sure. And I hate to say it, but the Jets kind of are in a win-now mode, too. Because their defense is great. They have a good record. And I think they could be competitive in the playoff with a consistent quarterback. I hate to say this, but does this story sound familiar? Because didn't the Chicago Bears in 2018 have a quarterback that was drafted number 2 overall that struggled throughout the year? Pretty solid run game. Not really many receivers, but a great defense, and they were winning games.
I don't think that was the quarterback's fault, though.
I hate to say it, but I see so many similarities to this New York Jets team than the Bears of 2018. I hate to say it. And they need to cut ties sooner rather than later. Because look at what happened to the potential of that Chicago Bears team. It's gone. It's dead. And so I think the Jets need to cut ties with Zach Wilson. But moving on to the actual game.
I think Zach Wilson I think he might need a year or two to not be the guy. I think he might need to sit behind somebody and just learn for a little bit. And the Jets have a pretty solid team right now. And, one guy that might be available real soon that I think they would love and would do great for them, Garoppolo. I think Garoppolo would be a great guy for Zach Wilson to sit under, learn from. San Francisco doesn't want him. He'll go to the Jets. He could questionably win them a Super Bowl with how they're doing this season especially. I think that might be a perfect fit for him. Good place to go.
And it's kind of funny that you say that. Robert Saleh was the defensive coordinator in San Francisco before he took the head coaching job in New York. So there's personal connections there. So I could see Jimmy G in New York. One thing with this is I want to get back into the gameplay. It was 3-3. And in the second half alone, the Jets only averaged 2.71 inches in the second half of offense.
Per play they average. Jeez.
2.7.
Thought you were about to say yards. Like, oh, yeah, that's not great. But, I mean, yeah. But inches?
Yes, inches. And so, the insane part about this is I don't know how an offense is capable of doing. One, they're really missing Breece Hall. I'm really seeing that right now. The offense is really missing Breece Hall. And Zach Wilson has regressed this year, similar to a quarterback that Mitch Trubisky regressed in his second year. But, no, there was 17 punts, and Zach Wilson only had 12 attempts passing. So, that's not many. And so, when punts outnumber your pass attempts, you got an issue. In New York. You got a really big issue. And on the other side of the ball, the Patriots definitely didn't play great either. It was nobody should have won. But Bill Belichick, somehow, games like this, he pulls out. And
there's certain game scenarios where once you get to the NFL level, strategy becomes real important. You obviously need big players to make great plays, stuff like that. But there comes a point when it comes down to the play calling, just the general how the head coach handles things about the game. And that's where when you're going against a team like the Patriots, it doesn't matter who all's playing or who's in the game, not in the game, how they're performing. Sometimes it just strictly comes down to, hey, Bill Belichick is your head coach, and he knows how to play the game,
For sure. And that leads to the last play of the game, which was 18 seconds left. The Jets were punting it back to the Patriots. It was probably heading to OT. I thought it was going to end like a 6-3 ball game. And the Patriots returned the punt return 85 yards for a game-winning touchdown in 18 seconds. And I just can't, that's got to be the most heartbreaking loss for Robert Saleh. And because, one, the Patriots are the Jets-Packers. If we're comparing the Bears and the Packers, the Patriots are the Jets-Packers. Even when they don't have a good team, they still beat the Jets. So I hate to say it, but, they own the Jets. And that I just know how they feel because I've been in that boat too many times.
That has to be the most heartbreaking way to win a game. You're punting it away. You think you're going to overtime. Hey, we still got however long to try to put one more score up on this board. Let's just go get a score, and then boom, you don't even go to overtime. questionably, that punt team might not have been prepared for the possibility of ending the game right there. I think mentally they might have been thinking too far ahead, thinking they were in overtime or were set to go to overtime, and they just dropped the ball. They weren't prepared for that specific play, and the way football goes sometimes is you can't take a play off. One play off, and it can be disastrous.
Yeah, and the offense also let the defense down because this Zach Wilson, when you have a bad game like that, you would think you'd come out like Josh Allen last week. He came out and he's like, "Oh, I played like shit." Justin Fields makes similar comments. And you want to hear what Zach Wilson did? I'll play a short clip of his interview post game.
As an offense, though, I mean, when you guys are only able to score 3 points, the defense only lets up 3 points. I mean, do you feel like you let the defense down at all? No.
He straight out says, "No, I don't think I left the defense down." That's not a true winner.
That is exactly like we were talking about with when we were complaining about the Bears and the Commanders game, or I think it was the Iowa and the Illinois game, where we're like, hey, the defense held that team to 12 points. The defense held that team to 9 points. Don't you think that should win a game? But no, if the offense doesn't score, they don't win the game. So reasonably, the Jets defense held the Patriots to 10 points. In the NFL, that's great. We just saw the 49ers Cardinals game that was a blowout because they only scored 10 points. And so 10 points, like that's a proud thing to hold teams to. And when you still lose that game, when the offense put 3 points on the board and you're saying that you guys didn't lose the game or don't take credit or acknowledge the fact that maybe you guys were the problem, yeah, that's an issue.
Yeah, I hated it. As a quarterback, you don't want to see it. We showed good examples of a leader at the quarterback position in Jimmy Garoppolo. And here is a bad leader at the quarterback position in Zach Wilson. So there's just that comparison there. But yeah, that's all I really got on this Jets-Patriots game. Moving on to Lions versus the Giants, and we'll make this really brief. Lions are on a 3-game win streak and are in sole second place in the NFC North. That is insane to me. Max?
That's just such a weird, like, oh, we got Vikings and Lions leading the North right now. That's okay.
Right. You know, and the Lions do deserve it. They do. I mean, the Lions have played well, and they beat, 3 good teams: Packers, Bears, and Giants.
Their offense has definitely much improved. I know they are offensively. They're a what do I want to say? Competitive team. Like they get points on the board. They almost made the same switch the Bears have kind of been starting to make, where they are building up their offense big time, and they're still just working on implementing some more of that defensive foundation. But so far this year, I mean, the Lions offense has been killing it. They've been losing some games still, kind of like us with losing a lot of games that we still score 30 points in, but they're scoring. They have a good offense.
For sure. Yeah.
All right, so now we'll get into our main segment, Bear Central. So the Bears once again just lost a game by 3 points to the Atlanta Falcons. The score was 27-24. This was our third consecutive loss by less than 3 points, or 3 points or less, that's almost a little more defeating, don't you think? Like, having those close games and still losing every time, does that break your heart a little bit?
It does. It does. I kind of hate it right now. But I'm just glad we're in the close games and we're not getting blown out, because I guess I'd rather take heartbreaking losses and be like, well, we stayed in, we hung in with the Dolphins, or we hung out with the Falcons, and instead of, oh, we got blown out by the Falcons. I don't want to get blown out by any team.
Definitely. I think you do have to take it with a little bit of a grain of salt. Obviously, it sucks losing, especially so closely in such a tight game. It can potentially hurt a little extra. But from a long-term standpoint, like you said, we're scoring, we're keeping things close, we're doing well. That is something we should still be proud of. I think it's a little bit dependent on who you're playing, too. Like, when you have a really, really close game that you lose by 1 point to the Lions, I think that's a little bit upsetting. But when you lose to 3 points to a team like the Dolphins, I think that's something to be more proud of. Like, hey, we only lost by 3 points to the Dolphins. And that might be kind of a losing team mentality, but newsflash, we've been a losing team for a little while now. So that mentality is just ingrained in us.
And I want to talk about everybody's nervous about it. Justin Fields' injury. Last couple of possessions, he did not look good. And he didn't look bad. He just didn't look good. He didn't look fresh. And you could tell there was a nagging injury going on. And I couldn't tell if it was the hamstring or the shoulder. It turns out it's the shoulder. And he's day-to-day. Do you think he misses this week?
I don't know if he misses his... I heard he just had a shoulder dislocation. That is not the same as a shoulder separation. If it's dislocated, just pop the sucker back in. You do want to watch that rotator cuff a little bit. You might want to strengthen that up, make sure it doesn't become dislocated too easily again. But I don't see a huge reason he shouldn't play. If that's the only issue, if that's the only problem that occurred, is just that shoulder coming out, that's a pretty easy pop it in. You can put some wrap on it. You can wear a little bit of a shoulder brace or something. I think he'd be fine there. If his hamstring is also having some kind of issue that's less reported on, that I could see taking him out a little bit. I think at most, though, I think he only misses this next game. I don't see a reason he misses any more than just, hey, sit this one out, take it off, you'll be fine. Like, we just want to make sure you're good and healthy for the nothing that we have coming up at the end of the year. So,
for sure. And if Justin plays with how bad Zach Wilson played last week and how he's played this year, we have a shot to win this game. But if Trevor Siemian plays, we are dead in the water, and I might not even tune in to watch it on Sunday. So,
sorry. Speaking of you talked about the last play a little bit with where Justin Fields was hurt or showed some of his injury. I wanted to point out, Eberflus did comment that the second quarterback draw that was run was not his plan. He did not call that play. It was supposed to be a draw play to Montgomery, not to Fields. There was some kind of a miscommunication, so he really worried us with a couple of what seemed like horrible play calls at the very end, because you have a beat-up Justin Fields who is hurt. He's obviously a little bit injured, and he was not feeling great, and you're going to call 2 quarterback draws to try to win the game. Horrible idea, but Eberflus says the second one was not what he called, so I guess we can rest a little bit assured that we don't still have play calling issues.
For sure. And I know you were telling me that you were like, I feel like this is kind of Matt Nagy-esque. And I'm like, yeah, I don't say that. Don't ever say those 2 words in my general vicinity ever again.
Worried me. 2 quarterback draws when he literally is holding his hamstring like the drive before. Like, that's stupid.
Yeah, no kidding. And I don't blame you. I was kind of concerned too. But, yeah, we suck, man. We suck. Our defense...
We'll get better, hopefully.
I need Justin Fields to get out of the season alive.
And that raises a good question too. Like I was saying, if he sits out this game, keep him healthy, whatever, blah blah blah. But that actually raises a really good question of, so we have nothing to look forward to at the end of the season, right? We're not making a playoff run. We're not going in, whatever. Do we sit out Justin Fields a little bit, just kind of as like a, hey, like you're a little bit beat up, you're real sore from a rough season. Like, do we let that man just kind of sit a little more and recover and just keep him for next year when he's actually going to matter?
No. And this is the reason, this is my take on it. We don't sit him out because he's still learning. He's still learning. He's still progressing. He's still a super young quarterback that needs the game time reps. And he needs the game time reps so next year he can be better equipped. He saw more and more, and he can translate it next year into even better playing. That helps with building chemistry, and I think that's something that Justin Fields really needs for next year also. And it will make our team look better too. I could understand if he was like a Russell Wilson and they're paying him a shit ton of money, but he's still on his rookie deal, Justin Fields, and at the same time, Russ, I get if the Broncos bench Russ, because, they're dead in the water too, but Russ, he's already knows how to be a pro. He already knows how to be an NFL starting quarterback. So I understand.
And I'm not saying that, we sit him, the rest of the season, just, hey, you're not going to play anymore, but just limiting his reps a little bit more, maybe just getting him, the fourth quarter of each game, letting him sit out and just chill, or the first quarter, just allowing him to have some breaks in there and not just go get beat up by a defense with refs that aren't going to call penalties for it for 4 fucking quarters.
For sure. If Justin Fields even allowed that to happen. Because we all know what kind of competitor he is. We all know how much he wants to win in Chicago. And he would not let anybody take him off the field. Even when he's hurt, he doesn't.
That's not up to him, though. If the head coach, if Eberflus said, hey, you're sitting out the fourth quarter and the remainder of the games just to, we're trying to save you from getting beat up a little bit too much. It doesn't matter what Fields wants. That's his boss right there. His boss is he controls who is in and out. The players aren't controlling who's in and out. If Eberflus thinks it's the best long-term decision for the team, Eberflus makes that decision and enforces it.
True. I agree. Yeah, I agree. I mean, at the end of the day, what can you do? But next up is the Jets, and I really hope. What are you taking? Are you taking over, under, plus 4.5?
So next up, the Bears are playing in New York. The Jets. The Bears are underdogs by 4.5 points, and the over/under is 39.5. It's a tough one because, like we were talking about with the Jets, they don't have Breece Hall anymore, and Zach Wilson is playing very poorly and all this. And I don't know who the Jets have. I can't think of a big playmaker right now for the Jets in my head. So I really want to lean with the Bears. 4.5. Well, I'm going to take the Bears to cover. We've lost the past 3 games by less than 3 points. We have 4.5 points going into the. I take the Bears to cover. I think if anything, they'll probably lose. They might lose, but not by more than 3. I think we still hold true to our keeping it within 3 points that we've been doing.
All right. I'm actually going to take a kind of a weird one. I'm going to take the under 39.5 points. Well, and the Bears, they've scored 30 points in the last 3 games, and I understand that. But I also don't think we're going to see Justin Fields on Sunday. I think we're going to see a Trevor Siemian on Sunday. And knowing the Jets' offense, I think this is going to be like a 13-3 ball game. Because I don't have faith in Trevor Siemian. I've watched him in the preseason. And I don't have faith in Trevor Siemian. So, like, I think in our defense, yeah, they can't stop anybody. But Zach Wilson's pretty terrible. I think, if anything, it'll be 13-3, 20-3, 20-6 type ball game.
I definitely agree with that. I think it's going to be real low. I think it's going to be similar-esque to the Jets-Patriot game we talked about earlier, where it's just going to be a bloodbath of, like, Jesus Christ, who is actually going to score in this game.
For sure. So, yeah, I'm going to take the under, and you know what? I don't think the Bears win this week. I think the Bears win this week if Trevor Siemian doesn't play and Justin Fields plays. But if Trevor Siemian plays, the Bears lose, and they lose badly. So, yeah.
That's the hard thing about picking some games, especially this far ahead. We're recording on a Wednesday because I'm going to be in Colorado this Friday when we normally record. So it's hard to know the situations and who's playing. And so sometimes making these picks gets a little difficult. But we'll move on now to our college football talk. We're going to start getting into the college football playoff scenarios that are coming up real soon here. So the top 4 teams, literally the college playoff teams, all had some very, very close games this week. Avery, what do you have to say about that?
Yeah, Georgia versus Kentucky, 16-6. Michigan, Illinois, 19-17 on a game winner. TCU versus Baylor, 29-28 on a game winner. And that's just in Ohio State.
Penn State.
Ohio State and Maryland. Maryland. And that one wasn't as close, but it was still 41-30, which is close.
From what you typically see from Ohio State, though, like, I would argue it's a pretty close score, considering Ohio State normally puts up quite a bit on people.
Yeah, 11-point game is pretty insane. So, yeah, the one game, I feel like the top 4 teams, like, they're getting everybody's best shot. And I think that's why it's that close. They're like, no, you're not going to the playoffs. Like, especially TCU. People think they're overrated because they're in the Big 12 and they win games like this, 29-28. I think that's just a good coach team. But anyways, the one game I really want to talk about is number 5 Tennessee versus South Carolina.
So we definitely had some rearranging of the first 5 out, at least, for the playoffs. Number 5 Tennessee lost heftily to South Carolina, and 63-38 was the final score. What happened? Is Tennessee, I think you mentioned it earlier this season, Tennessee is overrated, and I think they just showed that.
Yeah, I think Tennessee's overrated, and at the end of the day, Spencer Rattler was the starting quarterback for Oklahoma last year for a reason. And he finally showed it for South Carolina. Like, he came out and he threw 6 TDs. And he looked good doing it. And I hate it. You know, I'm not a big South Carolina fan. But I do like seeing a big team. Like, I like seeing, we talk about it all the time, underdogs. And this was a major underdog moment. But at the same time, I thought Tennessee was a nice underdog story for the whole year. So I'm kind of hurt with that.
That makes sense. I do love an underdog kind of winning the fight. I just love seeing those upsets sometimes. It's like, yeah, love an upset. One game I'm super glad did not end in an upset, though, is Michigan playing at Illinois. Michigan managed to pull it out 19-17, and the big news with that game is that now that Illinois has accumulated one more loss, Iowa officially controls their own destiny in the Big Ten West.
I've been saying this for 4 weeks now, that Iowa was going to go to the Big Ten championship. No one believed me. I've been saying this, and I will keep saying that Iowa's going to go because we own our own destiny. Officially, everything, there was like 10 things that had to come into fruition to happen 4 weeks ago, and all 10 of those things have. Are we a team of destiny? Probably not. We're going to get spanked in the Big Ten championship game.
Hey, I don't even care because, first of all, I don't think we get spanked. We're obviously going to lose. It's going to come down to playing Ohio State or Michigan. More than likely Ohio State, if I had to guess. But I don't know if we get spanked in that game. I think we do all right. We'll save some of this talk later for the Let's Talk Hawks segment. But, yeah, the college football playoffs, the top 4 teams, you might want to question it a little bit. Like, with some of those close games, what, is there one more week left? One more week for things to change up?
Yep.
Who do you think these 4 teams are staying in? Who do you think is gonna make playoffs, and then who do you think is gonna win it all?
I think Ohio State and Georgia are the only safe ones in the playoffs. I think Ohio State beats Michigan this week. And then also, I think TCU, they won't lose this week against Iowa State, but they will end up losing in the Big 12 championship again to Texas. So I feel like they'll get knocked out at some point. It'll be a nice Cinderella story, but I think TCU will end up getting knocked out and Michigan will get knocked out. But the only 2 teams that I feel safe about are literally Georgia and Ohio State.
That makes sense. I think Georgia and Ohio State are definitely safe in there too. I think Michigan is fairly safe. Even if they do play in the Big Ten Championship in the East and they play Iowa, they're obviously going to beat Iowa. I think they'll look fine. I don't think they have anything to worry about. TCU is the only one that I have a little bit of question for. If TCU does lose in that Big 12 championship to Texas, Southern California might come in and take that number 4 spot. They're currently in the number 5 spot after Tennessee got knocked out. LSU is also hunting in there. LSU has a shot at that bottom spot. So if I had to have it my way, I would like TCU in it. Just a Big 12 team be kind of nice, whatever. A little bit of a change up here. Like, let's get LSU and them out of there. Like, I want to see TCU in it for once, especially since they're led by our Iowa native,
Max Dugan.
Max Duggan. So, yeah, I kind of want TCU to do good. That being said, I don't think they win it all. I think it's hard to say Georgia or Ohio State right now. I haven't watched Georgia play at all. I've watched one Ohio State. Well, technically only half because I didn't get to watch that full Iowa game with Ohio State. So I haven't watched a lot of these teams myself. But I'm going to support the Big Ten route, and I'm just going to say Ohio State. They win it all this year. What do you think?
I think it will be Georgia again. Georgia's too good of a team. They're too well coached, and I think they'll win it again. As much as I like Ohio State, I think they'll be in the national championship. Both of them, though. I think it'll be Georgia versus Ohio State for the national championship. It'll be a cool national championship, but I think Georgia pulls it out.
I think you're definitely right about that. Let us know what you guys think. Go to our YouTube, leave a comment, give us your top 4 teams that are going to be in the college football playoffs, and give us the team that you guys think is going to win it all this year. But without further ado, we'll get into our college team with Let's Talk Hawks. So, as we mentioned, the Iowa Hawkeyes control their own destiny now. Part of that comes with their win against Minnesota, 13-10. Avery, how did you feel during this game?
Oh, man. When Minnesota's running back was running all over us, not great. But I'm pretty happy with the outcome. Not just pretty, I'm really happy with the outcome. We deserved this. Everybody thought we were dead in the water. Here we are. We're 13-10 win against Minnesota. I think I'm nervous about this upcoming week.
And we'll get into that, but I was very nervous during this game. I was nervous watching the Illinois-Michigan game, as that was the game on just before this one. So my Saturday was basically spent with me being a nervous wreck about how everything was playing out. Because as close as that Michigan-Illinois game was, Illinois was actually up for a good majority of the game. The same was true with Iowa-Minnesota. It was such a close game. Minnesota's running back, he's a real good back. He was running all over Iowa, embarrassing us a little bit, I'm sad to say. But thankfully we did just enough to be able to squeak out a 3-point win like we needed to do. I'm a little nervous on the offensive side because 13 points is not a ton. But defensively, Iowa's still doing what Iowa does. Held the other team 10 points, barely breaking that double digits. I love our defense so much. If we do go to the Big Ten championship after a win against Nebraska, I think we do okay. I think we hold our own a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. And I want to shout out Jack Campbell for having a hell of a drive, or having a hell of a pick in that game. That should have been a pick six, but the refs kind of screwed us on there. But yeah, I just have one more thing to comment about this Minnesota-Iowa game. Jack Campbell, his pick six was incredible, and it's too bad it got called back. But I'm really going to miss him at the end of the year.
I'm going to miss a lot of guys at the end of the year. That half our defense is gone. Breaks my heart.
I know. And we are officially a top 5 defense in college football. So, that being said, we play the Nebraska Cornhuskers this week. Max.
So we are favored by 10.5, and the over/under is 38.5. Oh man, this one makes me nervous because this is the game. This is the reason why we mentioned earlier that of all the games going on Friday, this is going to be the one we watch because this one carries the most weight as far as this is our make it to the championship game. We win this game, we go to the Big Ten championship. So that's huge. That being said, I'm very, very nervous about it. Nebraska is an improving team right now, and we always play them very close. So, Avery, what are your thoughts on this? Coming straight from Omaha.
Yeah, I cannot show my face in Nebraska if we lose this game. I'm going to literally have to put a for sale sign in my front yard if we lose this game. But, yeah, no, I really am nervous because, like, Nebraska, we have their number, right? It's been 7 years in a row. Sorry, words are hard. 7 years in a row. This will be the 8th year if we win. And at the end of the day, I would love to win. I would love to win, and I hope we do win because there's a lot on the line. But do you think, like, at some point, the record's got to slide? They have to pull one off?
At some point, it 100% does. I was just going to mention that we had a similar stat against Iowa State at the beginning of the season. We were, I forget how many years in the winning against that rivalry, and as we all know, this year we dropped that one. So, of course, that was a different team. That was the beginning of the year. I think we've had a lot better play lately. We've been winning games lately. But yes, like you said, I am a big believer in that. I don't think there's any team that can continuously, like, always lose these kind of rivalry matches. One of these days, it does have to make a change.
For sure.
Go ahead.
Yeah, and I agree. And that's what makes me so nervous about this game. And one thing about this is we should have lost last year. I hate to say it. We were down 21-3. We should have lost. If
last year was a miraculous comeback that I don't know how we pulled it off. I was just listening on the radio because I was currently driving home from Colorado. or I was actually driving to Omaha. I was coming to you. But, I don't know how we managed to pull that one off. I can only hope that in this game we don't get ourselves in such a big deficit. I mean, it is still Nebraska. Like you said, we were down 21-3. How many teams have put up more than 20 points on us this year? So I don't know if we have that much of a worry with Nebraska taking a huge lead. I think a bigger worry is they take a real small lead that we aren't able to offensively come back from.
Definitely, and I agree. So, who do you take? Are we going to the Big Ten Championship with this answer? And if you say Iowa wins or Iowa covers, we're going to the Big Ten Championship.
I definitely don't feel comfortable saying Iowa covers. 10 points is a lot of points, and it's Iowa. I would almost go back to the how many games have we won by more than 10 points, which we do have a few. There are a few in there actually, but I'm gonna take Iowa money line. I'm gonna take them straight up. I want to go to this championship game. It's Nebraska. I don't even want to tolerate the thought of, hey, we lose to Nebraska this year. We win it. We're going. I'm taking Iowa on this one all the way. Ride or die Hawks. How about you?
I'm taking Iowa. I'm taking Iowa. I am so scared. Because, and this, all right, so, because this is their Super Bowl. Everybody in Nebraska feeds on the Iowa game. Same in Iowa. Everybody in Iowa feeds on the Nebraska game. And they have nothing to play for right now. So, in a team that has nothing to play for, it can be either very good to play or very scary to play. This is a play.
In this instance, it's a scary to play because they're in it to play spoiler. Like you said, Nebraska and Iowa, the rivalry is very strong there. If Nebraska has a chance to take out Iowa and remove them from from going to the Big Ten championship, they're going to do everything in their power to keep Iowa from going to that championship because that's just the kind of relationship these two schools have.
Oh, and I agree 100%. And so, this is a playoff game. Iowa's in a playoff game this weekend. You play, you win, you're in. You play, you win, you're in. This is a playoff game. And for Nebraska, this is their Super Bowl. This is literally their Super Bowl.
I am terrified. I'm so scared, just as you are. I think the hardest part about it, or the weirdest part about it right now, is did you think we'd ever be having this conversation at the beginning of the year?
After we dropped it to Iowa State, I was like, yeah, the Hawks, no, we're not going to the Big Ten championship. We're not repeating.
Right? So much of the beginning of the year was giving us the indication of, hey, we're not even going to be joking about making the Big Ten championship because that's never going to happen. And now here we are sweating over if we're going to make it past that one final game to get there. I kind of love it. I kind of love exceeding expectations as opposed to dropping expectations. But, oh, man, I'm going to be a nervous wreck just all weekend. I know it. I can just feel it. I'm going to be so on edge.
For sure. Well, moving on. So I guess I didn't say what I'm going to do. I'm going to take Iowa money line also.
Okay.
I'm going to take Iowa money line also. But moving on to basketball, Iowa did play another Nebraska school. My school, UNO, Omaha Mavericks.
So, we talked a little bit about last week. Our schools are playing each other, which is kind of a fun experience. I know you wanted a little bit of a closer game, Avery. I am sorry to say it was not the closest of matchup. But that being said, it's not necessarily supposed to be. I know the announcers were even talking about it, how we were talking about last week. These bigger, more notable schools play some of these smaller schools, and it's more of just kind of a tune-up for the teams to get ready for real good competition type play. Iowa won 100-64. Love it when we break 100. I was getting a little worried there toward the end that we weren't going to break 100. I'm not going to lie. Even though we had the backups in like half of the second half and all of that stuff, I still just love hitting that 100-point marker. So I was getting a little nervous we weren't going to make it there. I know I mentioned last week about Iowa getting ranked after this game, and not only did they get ranked, but they were actually ranked going into this game, not following the game. So Iowa does currently have the number 25 spot in college basketball, which I think is absolutely awesome. What I would love to see is the football team go out, beat Nebraska, make it to the Big Ten championship, and also get a ranking, even if it's 25, because Iowa having a ranked basketball team and a ranked football team is just like, that is something awesome, and that is something I love to see. But how did you feel about this Mavs game?
You know, Chris Murray is dangerous from behind the arc. He is dangerous. I might, like, Chris Murray is incredible. And yeah, you know, it's kind of heartbreaking, but I'm actually happy because Iowa's going to go farther. And, you know, I was an Iowa fan first, right? I've been an Iowa fan first, so I got to support my Hawks. The Mavs, we suck at basketball. Hopefully when we get into the Summit League games that we'll play a lot better. And we're not playing, you know, big schools like we have been, Kansas, Iowa, Nebraska. And, I mean, we do have a good squad. Marquella Fulton looked pretty good yesterday, and so did Fiddler. So, yeah, I'm just hoping we can progress. It's kind of like Iowa, or kind of like Chicago. I just want progression.
Definitely, you're mentioning Chris Murray and all that. Yeah, Chris Murray, no slack from where his brother left off. Literally, teams are out there almost thinking they're playing the same guy, I'm sure. Speaking of Keegan Murray, the San Francisco Kings did just beat the Grizzlies last night. I was not able to watch because not in the area, but I did see that they won, so I'm glad Keegan is having some success in the NBA out there. Meanwhile, his brother Chris is filling his shoes very well with Iowa being a dominant team right now. One thing I was a little disappointed about with the game was Tony Perkins didn't play. That makes me sad because I really like Perkins. I want to see him in there doing good. Hopefully he'll be back next week. I don't know exactly what's wrong with him or how long he's out for, but I hope to see him back real soon.
Yeah, and Iowa's next game is on Friday against 4-1 Clemson. How do you feel about that game?
That'll be an interesting game. I don't know how Clemson stacks up with basketball, really. I know pretty notable football school. Obviously, they have a very good football program. Basketball, I'm not 100% sure. They're not currently ranked, so that feels decent to me. We both have 4 wins. They've played one extra game. They lost that one extra game, so it doesn't mean a whole lot as far as records go to me. But I think Iowa should reasonably be able to pull this off. I just hope for a good game, and I hope for another Iowa win to go undefeated. I would love to see Iowa going undefeated as long as possible this basketball season because 4-0 is a great start. I love to see it, and I just hope it continues.
For sure. I think Iowa pulls it off also. Do you think they're going to score another 100? That's 2 times this year that they broke the century mark in points. What do you think?
I think another 100 is. I think it should happen. I really want it to happen. I know I love when we break that point. I like I said, I don't know a ton about Clemson, so I don't know if they get a lot of their wins off of good defensive play. I don't know if they just have a very high-scoring kind of an offensive game, but I mean, I hope we break 100. I would love to once again. I want to win, even if we lose a few games here and there. If we break 100 points in those games, I'll be somewhat satisfied. You know,
for sure.
Getting into your team a little bit. Talk about who the Mavericks have coming up.
Yeah, so we have UL Monroe. They're 2-3. We're 1-3. They've played one extra game than we have, but they won that one extra game. So I'm a little nervous, but at the same time, I think this is the perfect game to get us back in the win column. This is kind of the get-right game. We've played a couple of tough teams this year, and for such a small school that UNO is, it's like, okay, we need to play someone our size, and I feel like UL Monroe fits that bill. So I think we will come across, and I think we'll have a good shot at beating UL Monroe this week.
Yeah, and same thing with the records. Omaha being 1-3 and them being 2-3. They technically have an extra win, but they've also played an extra game, so you can't really count it. And they also didn't play the number 25 team Iowa or the number 5 team Kansas. So I think the Mavs have a pretty good shot at pulling it out. I hope this does get you guys back in the win streak. Just knowing they're your team, I'm going to kind of follow along with them too a little bit and keep an eye on them just so when we're talking, I can have some good contribution with how they're doing. But that'll about wrap us up for this episode. So please go like and subscribe on YouTube. Leave your comments. I want to know who you guys think is making college football playoffs. I want to know who you guys think is winning the football playoffs. Go leave your comment on YouTube or Instagram. Let us know what you guys think. Avery?
Yeah, thanks for listening. Like always, guys, you guys are amazing. And I just got 2 words. Bear down!